Good morning, all. The more you are eager to learn new things, the more you get closer to success. With this motivating quote, I see Tamil Selvi, Department of IT, welcome you all to the day 2 of the Virtual Faculty Development Program on Education 5.0. Today we have with an eminent guest, Mr. Dexter Sam, Associate Head Program Still Education, who will present his lecture on the topic Role of Education 5.0 in Implementation of SDGs. I call upon our head of the department, Professor Dr. N. Kanya, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Tamil. Respected dignitaries, esteemed faculty members, and dear participants. A warm and heartfelt welcome to all of you on behalf of Dr. NGR Educational Research Institute, Department of Information Technology and Academic Staff College. Today, we gather here to attend the second day of 1 week faculty development program on Education 5.0. First and foremost, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to the Founder Chancellor, Dr. A.C. Shanmugam sir, and our President, Engineer A.C. Sarun Kumar sir, for their constant support and encouragement in organizing this program. Their vision and dedication have played a vital role in shaping our institute success. We are privileged to have Dr. K.M. Mehta, Advisor of Computing Science at Dr. NGR Educational Research Institute, here with us today to deliver the felicitation address. His vast experience and profound knowledge in the field of computer science will undoubtedly enrich our understanding of Education 5.0. Welcome you, sir. On the second day of this program, we have a privilege of welcoming Mr. Dexter Sam, Associate Head Program from STER Education. He will be enlightening us on the crucial topic of role of Education 5.0 in the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal. Mr. Sam's expertise in this area will undoubtedly inspire us and motivate us to understand the power of education in building sustainable future. We welcomed Mr. Sam. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to the coordinators and organizers of this event, Dr. Dalia Sam, Professor in the Department of Information Technology, and Mr. Vijayarasu, Assistant Professor in the Department of Information Technology, for their meticulous planning and dedication in bringing this program in a successful way. I would also like to acknowledge their entire team from the Department of IT for their unwavering commitment and hard work. This faculty development program on Education 5.0 aims to create a platform for intellectual discourse, knowledge sharing, and the exploration of innovation teaching methodology. Through a series of insightful sessions and discussions, we hope to deliver into the interactive sessions on Education 5.0 and its profound impact of academic landscape. I encourage all the participants to actively engage these sessions, share your valuable perspectives, and embrace this opportunity to broaden your horizons. Let us leverage the power of technology and education shape a brighter future for our students and society as a whole. Once again, I extend my warmest welcome to each and every one of you, and I hope that this virtual program will bring you enriching experience for all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I request our beloved advisor, Professor Dr. K. Mehta, to present the felicitation address.
Respected participants and today's resource person, I think my echo is coming. Please, somebody switch off the mic, please. The resource person, Dexter Sam, and the HOD and the organizers of this FDA program, good morning to all. Are you able to hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
I'm audible? No
yes,
problem.
Sir.
Okay.
You're audible.
Okay. So I sincerely thank all the participants for registering this workshop for the faculty development program. I understand from the organizers about 2,000 participants have registered for this. So my sincere thanks on behalf of the MGR University and my own behalf to all the participants. I think 4 weeks back, the Academic Staff College has conducted an FDP on Education 5.0 as a continuation of that faculty development program. The Department of IT is taking it forward to bring some awareness on the tenets of the Education 5.0. See, all of you realize that this Education 5.0 is an important and most relevant topic in the present context. Only thing is, somebody has to unravel the mysteries of this 5.0 and its implementation. See, all of you realize the importance of this particular 5.0. So that is the reason why I think all the delegates have or are registered for this particular workshop, and you are very keen to know something about education 5.0. I think I really compliment the Department of Information Technology and the organizers of this particular FDP for structuring this program in a very nice manner. In fact, the Professor Dahlia and co, I think, have taken a very keen interest in structuring the program and include very important topics covering the entire gamut of the Education 5.0, and they have selected a very eminent speakers for each topic. So I'm very happy about this whole faculty development program. See, I think all of you know the government of India in general and AICT in particular have taken several initiatives to implement Education 5.0 to bring out the multidisciplinary academic programs and research and how to bring out
Sir, can you hear me, sir? I think he has got stuck with the internet. Mehta sir, can you hear me? Meanwhile, before we start our session today, I would like to remind the participants that the attendance link will be available in the YouTube chat box, and at the end of the session. Filling up the form is important to earn the certificate. Sir is back.
hello,
Yes, sir.
hello.
Yes, sir. You can continue, sir. You're audible.
No, I don't know where
No,
I
I don't know
stopped this.
where I stopped this.
And there is echo
And there
for
is
me.
echo.
Sir, you were talking about the Indian government regarding Education 5.0.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
The
okay.
Indian
The
government,
Indian government.
I think there is a lot of echo for me. It is disturbing me a lot. Somebody can switch off. Hello.
Sir, your voice is okay for us actually.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir. You can continue.
Yeah, but there is echo for
there is
me.
echo for me.
So anyway,
So
government of
anyway, government
India.
of India.
No, please. There is a echo a lot. Is disturbing me a lot. Hello.
Hello.
Can somebody look
Can
into the
somebody look
problem,
into the
please?
problem, please? Dalia ma'am, kindly check what is the issue.
It sounds
It
fine for
sounds
us,
fine for
sir.
us, yes, sir. Yeah, your audio is clear for us, sir.
Yeah, but for
Yeah,
me,
but for
okay, now it
me,
is
okay,
okay.
now it is okay.
But now it's
But
the echo.
now it's
Echo
the
is
echo,
coming.
echo is coming.
I'm not able to
I'm
figure
not
out
able to
what is
figure
the real
out what is
problem.
the real problem.
Because I'm not
Because
using
I'm not
many
using many
devices.
devices.
Hello.
Hello. So can you once leave the StreamYard and join again, sir? Maybe that would clear the problem.
No, I have
No,
that
I have
has done
that
twice.
has done twice. I think I don't know what is the issue then. But your voice sounds okay for us, sir. No problem with us.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir. It's audible, sir. You can continue.
No, you are
No,
able to
you are able to
hear, but
hear, but
I'm having it a lot
I'm
of
having it
echo
a
for
lot
me
of echo for me
because I will not be able
because
to
I will not be
continue
able to
further like
continue
this.
further like this.
I've told our
I've told our
system admins,
system admins,
Saravana sir, to come and
Saravanan
check,
sir, to come
sir.
and check, sir.
Dahlia madam,
Dahlia madam.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
no, can you check
No,
with the
can you check with
speaker
the
face
speaker face
if he is all
if
right?
he is all right?
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah,
Can
then I think
Yeah, then I
perhaps
think
I think
perhaps I think
you can
you can
start the
start
lecture
the lecture.
okay.
Okay,
without wasting much
without
of
wasting
time.
much of time.
I don't want
I don't want
to.
to.
Oh my God, this
Oh
is
my
too
God,
echo
this is
is too
too
much for
echo is
me.
too much for me.
Hmm?
Hmm?
Hello.
Hello, sir. Is it fine now?
Yeah, it is fine now. Okay, now no
Okay,
problem.
sir. You can continue then. Yeah.
Okay. See, as I was, I think, stopped abruptly. I'm very sorry for that to all the participants. And the Government of India and AICT in particular have taken several initiatives to implement Education 5.0 to bring out a multidisciplinary academic programs and research, and how to bring out a good ambience and ecosystem to make students' life comfortable, and they'll be able to learn without any difficulty and without any hassles. So this is what is the initiatives have taken from the government of India, and especially the accreditation agencies like NAC, NBA, or ABET or something like that are focusing more on the OBE, and they are rigorously pursuing to implement this OBE across the different institutions of the country. So we have had to see the success of OBE and its implementation in the country. AICT has identified the need for bringing the major digital technology transformations actually, and insisted that AI, data mining, data science, machine learning, and IoT are to be taught
Mehta sir. Mehta sir.
I- Sir, can you
It's
hear us,
coming
sir?
in. Yeah, I'm hearing you, but somehow suddenly it is coming again. This problem. You are not able to hear me.
Yeah,
Is
yeah, we
something
can hear,
wrong with the
sir.
cell phone? Huh? I think network issue. It seems there is some network issues and so on like that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
Yeah, no
huh?
problem, sir. You can continue. You can continue, sir. Now it's clear.
Okay. Now the basic idea is I'm supposed to give only a felicitation address, but not a lecture on the Education 5.0. For past 2 to 3 years, we have faced a grave situation for all the academic institutions. One great challenge is to continue our teaching learning process as usual, as though the situation is normal. I think all of you know about this pandemic situation because of the COVID, and the COVID the brought all our changes into a very difficult positions, and it has changed the entire lifestyle of the students as well as the for all the individuals. All of us turn towards the digital technology solutions to combat these challenges. Several digital platforms and solutions emerged, even though we are not that much prepared. Anyway, all the teachers will always, I think, rise to the occasion, and we successfully manage the whole situation. And these are digital transformations, especially in the education sector, is very, very important. There are several workshops have been going on this, how the digital transformations and what is the use of digital platforms and how they improve the admissions and how to improve the employability skills of the students and so on like that. So there is a built-in competition among the various vendors to build their own digital platforms and market it to the academic institutions. Hence, the so that is the reason why I think online classes and digital learning became a part and parcel of our academic life. And these online classes and digital learning are no longer a trends, but became a reality and a part and parcel of academic life. All these digital transformations they brought out several emotional and social issues. Now the topic is essential to discuss the impact of digital transformations on the societal transformations.
Sir, can you hear us, sir? I think again he has stuck with the internet.
Hello,
Ah,
Yes,
yeah,
sir, you're
sir.
audible, sir.
but there's a lot of echo is coming out now.
Yeah. Yes, sir. You can continue, sir.
No, I think no. I think the participants and you are going to have a very feast of lectures by eminent speakers. Actually, that have been selected by the organizers. I think this is the time where I will stop my lecture. Actually, like this, somehow I'm not very happy with this network issues. Now, this is one of the problems of online learning. And are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir. You can continue, sir.
Where am I audible? But I am lot of echo is coming to me. Okay, I just end my felicitation address with only one question to all the participants to ponder. One question is that are we ready to accept all the advantages of Education 5.0 and face the challenges in the implementation of 5.0? Can you give me five most important strategies to implement effectively Education 5.0 and reap the benefits fully? Please pass on your comments and your replies to mehetakm@gmail.com. With this, I once again wish you all the best and hope that you are going to have a very good FDP and don't stop at this stage and please continue these workshops and FDPs on Education 4.0 and bring some sort of awareness among the various faculties of your institutions. Thank you very much. Hello.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. That was an enlightening. AP Babu,
Hello.
Assistant Professor, Department of IT, to introduce the guest speaker, Mr. Dexter Sam. Babu, sir.
A very good morning. Good morning. So I am AP Babu, Department of Dr. NGR and it's my honor to introduce today's chief Dr. Sam. He did his BTech from Big Plan. To pursue his passion, he continued to social work from data. He has worked at the intersection of campaign delivery and leadership education for around 30 years now. Presently, he is part of Education leadership. His official role is associate program where he leads the Nadu managing government relations, providing overall team and leadership, supporting in fundraising and communication. He is convinced that leadership is a matter of life and death and believes in the transformative potential of education to bring personal, community, social, national, and global change. Meeting people doing related work and exploring collaboration is one of his favorite things to do. Prior to steer education, he has had the privilege of working directly with children amid adverse experiences of poverty, HIV, displacement, ethnic conflict, and trauma. He is a chess player and enjoys playing the keyboard too. He has an academic background in engineering, social work, child rights law, policy design, and educational leadership, and sees himself as a lifelong learner. Apart from work, he enjoys cooking, solving puzzles with his 5 year old son, taking quiet walks, and reading poetry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now I request our guest speaker, Mr. Dexter Sam, to take over the session.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Uh, Hope you're all doing well today. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, you can continue. It's audible.
okay, great. Okay, so uh, really warm welcome to everyone. I don't know where all you've connected from. I can see around 234 people on the YouTube. So, really excited to speak with you. Warm welcome to all. So, the topic that I'm been asked to share is the topic of Education 5.0 and its connection to the Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, so I'm gonna spend some time today talking through the Sustainable Development Goals, also sharing a little bit about Education 5.0 and little bit also about the work that I myself and our organization does in education in the area of SDG 4 and ensuring quality education for all. And then I also want to share with you some thoughts around what are some ways in which we could implement, start implementing Education 5.0 within our work itself, right? So that's going to be the basic structure. So I'm hoping to share for around 45 minutes or so, 45 minutes or an hour, and then we could spend some time interacting with one another. uh, I think we've already in the morning experienced some of the challenges of technology, and I think we are all very used to this. I'm sure, being in this higher education space and trying to do lectures, this is something that happens all the time. So I think this is very relevant to also what we are going to speak about. Because on one end, when we talk about sustainable development goals, to transform the entire world, to make sure that every last person on the planet is reached, and then we talk about the use of technology, there are a lot of challenges that inevitably come as a result of that. Yeah. So let's start. I'm going to share my screen.
Hello. I think there was a small internet issue. You can continue now. Okay.
Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen?
Yes, it's visible. The PowerPoint is visible.
Great. Cool. So, yeah, so this is the topic that I'm going to share about today, Education 5.0 and the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Yeah. So, just to give you a bit of a background to start with about the history of the Sustainable Development Goals itself, right? So, in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro, there was what was called the Earth Summit, where world leaders met and talked about the environment and set various goals for themselves. And then you would know that in the year 2000, the world adopted what was called the Millennium Development Goals. So this was like a really big accomplishment because um, the world, like major world leaders, came together and actually set some goals for themselves. So this was the whole idea of goal based development that really started, where they set very clear targets for countries and very clear goals as to this is where we would like to be by the year 2015. So somewhere around the year 2012, again world leaders gathered and they found two things that were happening. On one end, they found that it has been 20 years since Rio de Janeiro and the Earth Summit, and we had not made enough progress on the area of environment and sustainable development. But it had only been 12 years from the Millennium Development Goals, and there had been some substantial development in terms of eradication of poverty and things like that in terms of the Millennium Development Goals. So I think one of the things that came up in that 2012 was this idea of creating something called the Sustainable Development Goals, where the idea of sustainable development itself will be integrated within the goals, right? So that's where the Millennium Development Goals, which were up till the time of 2015, were changed into the Sustainable Development Goals of 2015, and they have a target of 2030 for its accomplishment. There is a lot of conversation about among development experts that because of COVID, we've really been set back, and there is very less chance for us to accomplish everything, right? But definitely, even at 2020, 2030, there will be again more, future goals that will need to be set. So, if you see the Sustainable Development Goals and the Millennium Development Goals, one of the things you will notice, if you see the Millennium Development Goals, we see goals such as eradicating extreme poverty, achieving universal primary education, child mortality, maternal health, HIV/AIDS, malaria, things like that, right? So you see in this Millennium Development Goals that Millennium Development Goals are very focused on underdeveloped or developing countries, and they were very focused on these specific problems that needed to be solved. Whereas when you come to the Sustainable Development Goals, you will see that it actually applies to all countries in the world, whether they are rich or poor, northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, whatever it is, right? So that was one major thing that we see. Okay, let's go a little bit more into the Sustainable Development Goals, since that's what we are looking at now. The Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals that have been set to transform our world. You can actually see all the 17 on this slide. You'll see starting from the goal of no poverty, eradication of hunger as a separate goal, health, and then SDG 4 on quality education. We'll just talk a little bit more about this SDG 4. You will see that the big switch between MDGs and SDGs in education was that in MDGs, the goal was to ensure access to education, ensure universal access to education. So, what across the world experts found were that many countries, including in India, made a very good progress in terms of getting children into school. So suddenly we found that we had 95 plus percentage of children already inside schools. They were on the rolls of schools and things like that. But somehow, when it comes to actually learning, there was not enough happening. So that's when all these things came up about the annual status of education in India and things like that, where they found out many things like most children who are right now in grade 5 are not even able to read a grade 2 textbook, and most in grade 7 are not even able to read a grade 4 textbook and things like that, right? So there was a huge problem of the quality of education and learning outcomes not being met. So in the SDGs, it has been reframed to say that actually it's not enough that we just give access to education, but there should be an access to quality education at all levels, right? So that's the SDG that our own my own work also involves. SDG 4 is around gender equality. SDG 6 is around water and sanitation. 7 around affordable and clean energy. 8 around decent work and economic growth. 9 around industry infrastructure and innovation. 10 around reducing of inequalities. 11 around sustainable cities and communities. Again, you'll notice this is not just about the developing world, it's about the whole world, like sustainable. How can entire cities be made sustainable? Yeah. And then responsible consumption and production, climate action as SDG 13, life below water, SDG 14, life on land, and peace, justice, and strong institutions, and the last, SDG 17, as the partnership for the goals. Right? So there was a very clear understanding when the SDGs were released that these are extremely ambitious, and the only way this can be accomplished was that there has to be a lot of partnerships that happen. There have to be partnership between the corporates, between non-profit institutions, between governments, between universities, and all of us will have to sort of come together to be able to even accomplish some of these goals. In fact, when the UN Secretary General, he was Ban Ki-moon at that time, and when this was released, one of the things that was clearly spoken about actually was the role of universities, and the role of universities to actually create a knowledge base in order for this kind of problem solving to happen. So because this is, if you notice, this is something quite different. It is not just to say that you need to care for a few people around you who are needy, but it is rather to say, okay, we need to actually use the knowledge that we have to try and solve the problem of the whole globe and the whole country. And it's much more ambitious. It's not, it will require collaboration. So those are the uh, yeah. I'm seeing a question. Maybe we'll take them at the end. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. So that was the way in which the SDGs were designed. The 17 goals to sort of like look at the thing. So I just wanted to spend a few more minutes maybe on SDG 4 itself, which is around quality education. Right. So education itself is a sort of foundation for many of these aspects. Because there is a fundamental role that universities play in creating the knowledge required, creating the research required, creating the products and prototypes required for all of these goals to be accomplished. There's this Professor Jeffrey Sachs who did a mapping of the whole world, and he looked at all the places in the world where there is a lot of innovation happening, and they are always places where there are universities. So universities are the places where innovation happens, and so in some sense that education is sort of like a foundation or bedrock for all the SDGs, right? But SDG 4 especially is around ensuring that every child gets equal access. So I think that's something that is more like close to my own work. And so if you notice this, I think there is so much happening in this area, right? So the new education policy has come. There have been a lot of learning recovery programs because there was a very clear realization after COVID and the school closures that happened. India had the second longest school closures in the world, and it affected the learning of so many children, right? And it was said that many children had been set back by a few years, right? And usually what happens if learning recovery doesn't happen properly, and if foundational years there is a gap in foundational years. It's very simple. Like if you have ever taught a class of children, if you're teaching like fourth grade children, things like that, you're trying to teach them, let's say, addition or multiplication, and if they actually don't know numbers, or let's say if they don't know single digit addition, but you're trying to teach them double digit addition, what ends up happening, especially if you have a big class, is that that child, the child is not given more individualized attention, that child will step back even more. The child will become more and more disengaged from learning, and you will find that the next concept you teach, the child is even less engaged. It becomes harder to teach that child. So what happens is, this is like a compounding effect where the child constantly is set back, right? So what starts off as maybe like a half year back of education, as the years go, you will find that the child is completely set back. So a seventh grade child is only at the level of a fourth grade child, or and things like that. So when it comes to what happens in our country in terms of a 10th standard board exam or a 12th standard board exam, this is a huge challenge, right? So I think that's where there is this challenge of, like, how do we actually ensure good quality, high quality education to every last child in the country. And I think there have been some very, very commendable efforts taken by governments, including the Tamil Nadu government, like very, very, very commendable efforts, very massive campaigns with political will to ensure that learning recovery happens. And children have a good chance of recovering that learning loss, right? So, but I think the reason I'm saying all this is to say that even in spite of the best efforts, this is something that still needs a lot more work, right? There are still issues to do with teacher shortages, teacher motivation. There are issues to do with just children not being available, issues to do with equity, issues to do with lack of access to digital infrastructure. Sitting in a place like Chennai, there is so many challenges we face around technology, and you can imagine in like tribal areas, rural areas, the kind of challenges they face in technology. I think so. There is a lot of work that is still to be done, and universities have a huge role in that. Yeah. So we've looked at the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. You've seen the 17 SDGs. Hopefully, you've seen that sort of gamut of things. I want to talk a little bit about what is Education 5.0. Okay, so I think we will switch there. I realize that there is a huge lag between when I'm speaking and when it's actually coming on YouTube. But whoever is able to, if you can go to menti.com and use this code and actually write down your understanding of Education 5.0. What is Education 5.0? Right? Because sometimes I think what happens is we keep hearing these, uh, you know, words and phrases, and like they keep coming up in different ways, and maybe even different people mean different things when they say that. So I think just for our own collective understanding, what is Education 5.0? Yeah. So I will not wait. Given the time, we'll see if we can come back to this at some time, but it'd be great if you can go to menti.com and use this code. It will actually ask you this question of what is Education 5.0 in your own words, and you can put down your comments. Again, maybe later in the time we can look at what do people see. Yeah. And I will slowly like actually start to share my own perspective. We can come back to how we have understood education. I'll maybe give this just a few, half a minute, and then I will go on. Okay, just to give everybody time to, uh, go on this and put in some thoughts. I can see that so far around 10 are there, 11 are there. So you can see a few of us are joining. I understand that not everyone will be able to join, but let's see if we can get a few people's thoughts on this. I think it'll make it much more fun if we actually hear everybody's thoughts and then go into it. That's why, even though it's taking a bit of time, it'll be worth it. So I just thought it'll be interesting to hear everybody's views on Education 5.0. Okay, I'm going to start maybe showing some of what people are writing. You can see student friendly, learning something new, quality education, relevance, quality outcome, established truth, outcome based education, an innovative system, need of the hour, adopting with new trends, lifelong learning, education for the needy, revolution, human qualities together, uplifting society, okay, upskilling, fixing the learning gap, special attention to education, education of the 21st century, critical thinking, innovativeness. Okay, you can see how we have all such interesting different ways we are looking at it. Active learning method, somebody says. Okay, okay. I hope you are able to see. Like, I think we have such a wide variety. Thank you so much for engaging. Education for society, future technology, advancement, creativity in the teaching field, identifying skills, aligning learning flexibility. So I think some very interesting thoughts. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to stop sharing now. Please feel free to put in your thoughts because that will be there later as well. Um, I'm going to go back and share my previous screen. Yeah. Thank you so much for engaging with this. So I'm going to maybe spend the next 10 to 15 minutes sharing a little bit about Education 5.0. Yeah. So we will look at that in a bit. I think so. This is the Education 5.0. I will maybe start with this. Like, this is the language that started being used because of the World Economic Forum, where in the World Economic Forum, there was this conversation about Industry 4.0, right? In somewhere around the 2015, 2016 time, there was this conversation about Industry 4.0. Okay, so and this is what it means, right? So they looked back at the sort of history, and they felt like the first industrial revolution was actually the steam engine, right? So the steam engine was the first industrial revolution. There was so much that happened because of that. And when it was happening, people didn't think it was a big deal, but it was actually a big deal. It changed everything. It changed mobility. It changed it changed transportation. It changed the idea of distance. So much happened. It was the first industrial revolution, and the first industrial revolution also had a huge impact on education itself, right? The second industrial revolution was with the invention of electricity. Because again, with electricity, everything changed. There was so much that came new. Electric grids, the lights and time. Again, the concept of time. Evenings could be used, and so many things started happening because of the advent of electricity, and that was called the second industrial revolution. The third industrial revolution was because of computers and the internet, right? So again, as you all know, like, digital, like, really, like, changed everything when in the 1990s, 1970s, you see Infosys, all these, when they came in, they really changed the industry, They changed software, changed industry, things like that. And in 2015, Carl Schwab, who is of the World Economic Forum, he actually talked about how we are now going through the fourth industrial revolution, which is again a revolution to do with ICT and digital technology. But now we are seeing all these cluster of new technologies, right? You're seeing AI, you're seeing machine learning, you're seeing IoT, you're seeing data mining, and all these things becoming like the center. So that's like Industry 4.0, right? So when this whole thing was proposed, there was also a clear thinking among educationists, where they started thinking about, okay, what are the different ways in which education is evolving, and if you think about it, education is not evolving as fast, right? So if you look at in many places in the world, education uh, today, it looks very similar to what education would have looked like in the first industrial revolution, right? So when the first factories were made, if you look at some of the pictures of the classrooms, they look very similar to the classrooms today. There's a teacher, there is the benches and children sitting there. So that it's almost like an industrial model of education, which we have not really moved beyond. So there's a lot of conversation among educationists saying that we have to fundamentally change the paradigm of education, and we need to move on, and that should be education 4.0, and that is the whole idea of a digital transformation of education, right? And then beyond that, like, it's only been a few years from there, but I think there has been a strong realization that we can't just have education 4.0, we actually need to have education 5.0, because we can't just look at a transformation of education using technology, but it needs to be much more clearly human, and much more the taking into account the needs of the students and needs of the teachers and things like that. So in the next two slides, I'm going to give you a lot more detail. If you're taking notes, I'm sure these will help you. Yeah. So if you see the evolution of education, this is from a paper by Professor Karuna Nikkum. You can see this is how education seems to have evolved. Right? So education 1.0, you could call it again. This particular author sees it like this. In education 1.0, somewhere in the 9th to 15th century, it was a very teacher-centric system, and you can see that there's a lot more passive learning on the part of the children. 15 to 18, you can see it's much more knowledge based or exam based, where the slowly active learning is starting to emerge. 18 to 20th century, it's much more, the goal is much more, let's make it student centric, and you're starting to see more active learning coming up. In the 20th 21st century, we have education 4.0, which is much more an outcome based or an action based system, and you have things like project based learning and things like that. And education 5.0, they suggest, is for the future, which is much more research based and research based learning. Okay, so I think this is one way to sort of categorize that whole journey, you can see. And this is obviously much more complex than this, because you will find today also there are many places where the system is very teacher centric. You'll find it, or some places you'll find still very knowledge based. You might think, what, why are we saying 18th century student centric? We started talking about student centric only in the 20th century. So I think there are all kinds of variations of this, but this is, you can sort of see the evolution of how education has gone. Okay, and this is one way you can actually start to see the differences between the education 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and 5.0. Yeah, so you can see the first one we already talked about, approach being for teacher centric, knowledge based, student centric, moving into outcome based, and now moving into more research and innovation based. Yeah, so I know we are still trying to establish outcome based education, which is 4.0, but there's also this realization that that alone is not enough. It needs to be very carefully combined with research and innovation. Yeah, again, you see the periods in the second column, and you see in the parent demand, maybe earlier the demand was that the teacher should just care for the child. Over time, the demand started to be that no, school needs to actually help my child develop capability. uh, Over time, the demand was that no, my child needs to be able to compete with anyone else, right? anybody else in the world, and that competitive idea. 4.0, we started talking a lot more about, okay, we need to actually be cooperative, peer learning needs to happen. Ultimately, these outcomes need to be reached, things like that. And in 5.2, we're talking, parents are talking also more about the need for creating values, right? So it's not just about learning outcomes being met, but also individual, social, and professional values. And how do we make sure that a student going through a system is not just adept at the learning outcomes, but also has the right values. Right? So you see also the role of the student is changing, the role of the teacher or the educator is also changing. Right? So earlier in 1.0, the role of the educator is a sage, right, or a guru, right? Like I'm sure you would have heard, like in our education systems, we keep maybe sometimes fondly looking back. ஒரு காலத்துல இப்படி, like they were once upon a time gurus இருந்தாங்க, they were really looked up to. Gurukuls were there. That was something we look up to, right? So the role of educator changed over time to being this guide or an information source, right? So the student will get their information from their educator. Over time, um, as education became more student centric, the role of an educator became more of a curator of, picking out what should the student focus on, or a collaborator. In an outcome based system, the role of an educator is much more of a facilitator, a mentor, or a coach. And in the education 5.0, the role of the educator is changing even more to be one of an advisor, right? So not just a facilitator, but also a trusted advisor who's able to give the right reference, guide the inquiry, guide the research of the student, right? The role of a student also is emerging quite a lot. You can see that earlier the role of a student was very passive. Over time, it starts to emerge active owning of the knowledge in 2.0. In 3.0, there is knowledge ownership, but also much more independence of that student. Okay, right? Like where there's a lot of focus on student self-learning and that kind of thing. Uh, in 4.0, we start to think about not only active independent, but also like designing knowledge, right? So actually you create the knowledge, you create how will you find the answer, you create how will you learn, was one of the key parts. And I think in 5.0 there is this focus additionally on creative, innovative things like that, right? Again, you see I think I've taken a lot of time. You can quickly scan through it also. You can see the culture again, moving from a focus from religion to government being the focus, government, private, and industry, and now everybody has to come together and with innovative technologies. And you can also see this philosophy also changing quite a lot as the years go. It starts with behaviorism and essentialism. The idea of simply the behavior of the child needs to be shaped, and that's the purpose of education in education 1.0. Two, we see andragogical philosophy, heterogogy in 3.0, that is very much more self-determined autonomy, agency of the child, things like that. And we're moving to pedagogy, cybergogy, things like that. Okay, and then you see the way of education is also starts from very imposing, moving to a more in 2.0 more inscription. In 3.0 talks a lot more about inspiring. 4.0 talks a lot more about collaboration. 5.0 is talking more about research with the child. So I hope you're getting a sense of this is one way in which the different waves or the different uh, paradigms of education have been defined. Yeah, and you can see also, I think, just to connect back to some of this, you can see this whole, so this is like a global thing that's happening. You can see one way we've understood how the different 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0 have gone. I want to also show you some of the ways in which this comes as part of the national education policy. Yeah, so you can see I picked out a few quotes from the national education policy, where it says clearly that the policy is laying emphasis on the development of the creative potential of each individual, right? And it's the idea is that education must develop not only cognitive capacity, which is the foundational capacity of literacy, numeracy, higher order cognitive capacity such as critical thinking, problem solving. But the policy is saying not just these things, right? Not just foundational, not just higher order, but also social, ethical, and emotional capacities and dispositions. Right. So I think this is where there is that clear emphasis on there is something more beyond. Okay, we can't just be looking at what is the best way to make sure every child can read, every child can add and subtract, or every child is able to problem solve. Things like that. But we actually need to go beyond that and say, okay, but what about social, ethical, emotional capacities and dispositions, right? And it talks very clearly about the curriculum content itself will be reduced so that there is more space for this, critical thinking, inquiry based, discovery based, discussion based thing. Um, it talks about like making changes in the curriculum, making changes in the assessment as well, right? So the aim of assessment will it, it's a very this is an interesting quote I wanted to show you. It will shift from one of summative, which tests memorization skills, which is much more regular formative, that is competency based and promotes learning and development for our students. Test higher order skills such as analysis, critical thinking, and conceptual clarity. Right. The primary purpose of assessment will indeed be for learning. It should help the teacher and the student and the entire schooling system uh, continuously revise teaching learning process to optimize learning. And this is what is important. This will be the underlying principle for assessment at all levels of education. Right. So this includes higher education. That's the idea, that we are not just looking for a summative assessment, but sort of competency based assessment, where we're not just only looking at knowledge, but we're looking at knowledge, competency, skills, dispositions, and things like that, right? Emotional capacities is all that has happened. So I think that's where education 5.0 is different from 4.0, right? In education 4.0, we were talking a lot more about how do we use all technologies to make sure that these outcomes are reached. I think that we are still working on that, but there is a clear recognition now that there is a need to go even beyond that and humanize these technologies, right? So because sometimes the way the technologies are used are not very exactly relevant to the particular needs of the people, right? I think we've all experienced that. I'm sure you must have been in some class which you are doing, and you can see that the students are not at all engaged, they're not at all motivated. Or if you have been part of it, never you have not been engaged at all, right? So I think the use of technology, the use of data, and making sure that these are like well tuned to the human needs of people, right? That's where I think 5.0 is going. Yeah. So I think I've shared I think just to summarize so far, I've given you an overview of the SDGs. I've shared a little bit about what is Education 5.0, the evolution of that, what is the difference between the different generations of education and things like that, right? And I think you are a department of IT. I think you will have many experts among you who are very good at technology, very good at probably experts in AI, ML, all these data and things like that. So that is really not something that you probably need more, and definitely not from me. So I think the thing that I wanted to share with you was that what do we mean in terms of the education 5.0 when we talk about humanizing education? What kind of students do we want to create, right? I want to end with that, right? Like, what kind of students do we think are perfect for that education 5.0? Okay, so I've taken as the basis of what I'm sharing this book by Professor Howard Gardner, called The Five Minds for the Future, right? So this is the book. And if you know Professor Howard Gardner was the one who first proposed the theory of multiple intelligences, right? So he was the first one who actually said we need to actually think about the way in which we are measuring intelligence. And not everybody, it is there is not just one scale of intelligence, but there are multiple ways in which people exhibit intelligences. So that was his fundamental, his thesis, which really changed the way everybody looked at education, right? Like we don't just go for IQ, but there is also EQ that is important, a social quotient that's important. Today we also talk about a nature quotient that's important. So many things that are like important as the sort of rounded individual. Right? So he talks about education in the future, and he says these are the 5 minds we need for the future. So I'm going to spend maybe the next 10 minutes or so looking at these things, and hopefully this gives you a lot of food for thought. In each of the slides, I will also be asking you some reflection questions for you to actually think and reflect on your own classrooms and things like that. Yeah? Okay, so the first mind, he says, Howard Gardner says, is important for the future is the disciplined mind. I think this is very interesting. Sometimes when we think about the future, we don't usually think about the need for the disciplined mind. But if you were to really think about solving, the SDGs, the kind of ambitious goals we have for the world, we definitely need very very disciplined minds. Yeah, we need disciplined minds who can also start to think interdisciplinarily, right? So this is to talk about the ways of thinking associated with scholarly disciplines. So I'm sure you are all, many of you are researchers. As you go deeper into research, you have a way of thinking. You start to become very sharp. You don't just accept anything that people say, and that is the disciplined mind. You start to develop in ways of thinking associated with scholarly disciplines. You're capable of applying yourself diligently, improving steadily, and continuing beyond formal education, right? So this is what we want for our students. We want their minds to be disciplined, right? We want them to be able to think in a way that is scholarly. They need to be able to be capable of applying themselves diligently, improving steadily, and continuing beyond formal education. Yeah? Finally, so in a formal setting, this is what it looks like. It looks like mastery of subjects. It looks like completing professional training. That's in a formal setting. In a college, you will see a disciplined mind as somebody who is really good at the subject that is being taught. They make sure they complete all the courses, assignments, things like that. At a workplace, you will see that this person with a disciplined mind is continuing to show mastery of their role, right? So, and they are acquiring the additional disciplinary or interdisciplinary acumen you need in a workplace, right? So when you're in a workplace, whatever you've studied is not enough, right? You always need to, which is what the faculty development program is all about, right? We kind of have to acquire some additional skill, so continually becoming masters. So that is how a disciplined mind is seen at work. Some of the pseudo forms is like false forms in which you see disciplined mind, is that some people, you would have noticed this, that they will become too stuck on a particular procedure, you know and they will say that no, in chemistry this is how it is, right? Or whatever you can put in your particular specialization, and say this is how it has to be, and the thinking is no longer flexible. And a disciplined mind doesn't mean that your thinking is rigid. You can have a disciplined mind which knows, okay, at these places I need to be flexible. And that's the right way for us to have a disciplined mind. So a couple of questions for reflection. How do you see yourself in the aspect of a disciplined mind? What are some ways in which you can improve? Yeah. And when you see your students, are you able to nurture a disciplined mind in your students? And think you can think about where are some places where it has worked well, where are some places that maybe there is more need, right? So this is, you can take that down if you like. Just a couple of questions for you to reflect on your own journey. Okay? I'm just gonna hold on for maybe 15 seconds. Then go to the next. Okay, so I'll go to the next. The second mind that Howard Gardner says is key in our time today for the future is the synthesizing mind. Right? You all know that we live in a world where there is so much data and so much information. So this is what that is about. How good are you at selecting the crucial information from the copious amount of information that's available? And that's the synthesizing mind. Like, so we live today in a world where the whole world wide web is open to us, but how good are we at like picking out the right things, making sure you pick out the crucial information and you're able to synthesize it, array that information in a way that makes sense to yourself and to others, right? I think this is a very, very critical skill in our world today. You look at consultants, you look at people who are advisors. This is the key skill. How do I quickly make sense of information and help somebody put it together in a way that will make sense to somebody, right? Make sense to a decision maker, a policy maker, or things like that, right? I think the synthesizing mind, that's one of the key skills that we need for ourselves and for the students, right? So in a formal setting, this is what it looks like. It looks like the preparation for assignments and tests. You will see that some students are very good at just putting together the right material, and they'll give you a good assignment. Whereas some others, they're also spending a lot of time. They're spending a lot of time researching things like that, but somehow it's not coming together, right? So this is a skill of being able to synthesize information well, right? At work, this is about recognizing new information and skills that are important and incorporating them into one's knowledge base, right? So how do I find that one skill that I need to add to my thing? Okay, I can see that, okay, this is the way my discipline is evolving. If I was to really prepare my children, my students in the right way for the future, I need to have this skill. And how do I pick that up, right? So that's the synthesizing mind, who's scanning the environment, who's able to see, okay, there are these 7 things that people are talking about, and this is the one thing that is very important for me, and I will make sure I devote this much time, so I will add that, right? So that's the synthesizing mind. And so again, a pseudo form, you will have seen this. You will see that, like, when some people, when they are synthesizing information, it's a haphazard selection, right? They just picked out some things here and there, or core way it's not coming together, or you feel like maybe the summary is nitpicking on some small things and saying, yeah, there is this difference also, that difference also, or sometimes they're just unfairly lumping everything and just saying, broad brush stroke, it's all like this. But that's not the right way. So, right, what synthesizing mind, that skill is to make sure, how do I select the right thing, how do I organize it in the right way, how do I not generalize too much, how do I not make it too specific and boring, right? So I think that's the skill of a synthesizing mind. Again, a question for you personally: how do you do in the aspect of a synthesizing mind? What are some ways in which you can improve? Yeah. And what are some ways you can nurture the synthesizing mind in your students? Yeah. Again, I'm going to leave it for maybe 10 seconds. Okay. Then the third one that Howard Gardner says is the creating mind, right? So in the creating mind is a mind that is able to go beyond the existing knowledge and pose new questions and new solutions, right? So you'll see somebody who has a creative mind, they're able to it's not like they don't know the existing knowledge, but they're able to go beyond it and pose new questions and give new solutions and inquire more, right? So in a formal setting, this looks like a student comes to you and gives you a very unexpected product and project, but it's appropriate, it's right for the assignment, but you didn't expect it. So you can see that, oh, that's a student who has a creative mind. And at work, it looks like thinking out of the box. You will see that some people are able to think out of the box, who are able to come up with solutions, who are not just stuck in the same ways. They're pursuing some new visions, they're putting forth recommendations for new practices, products, always saying, okay, let's try it like this, let's try something new, let's try this. That's the creating mind, and that's what we need in our time, where there's so much rapid change. You need minds that are creative, right? So who are able to come up with something new, who are able to think outside of the box, right? A pseudo form of this you would have seen is that some people they some people think that they have a creative mind, but actually they're not offering anything creative. They're just offering a superficial variation. They're just changing one element of this and giving you some other idea, or changing the name and things like that, or the same idea that we used here, they're proposing it here, things like that, which is not really like a creating mind. It is just it's a pseudo form. It's not bad sometimes, but sometimes it can be also, right? Or it might be someone who's also possibly being too creative, and they're just proposing some such a novel departure, which that it will not be accepted, or it doesn't really work, but in as an idea it sounds very creative or very out of the box. But it's actually that they haven't actually, their mind is not trained well to create in the right way within the correct boundary conditions. So that's something to think. So again, for a question for you, how do you do in the aspect of the creative mind, and what are some ways in you which you can improve, and what are some ways you can nurture the creating mind in your students, right? So again, I think that you will notice in all my questions I have put one question about you as a faculty, and one question about your classrooms and your students, because I think the key for all of these things, right, the key for developing a disciplined mind, the key for developing a creating mind, the key for developing all these is actually role modeling, right? So when a student sees their teacher role modeling this aspect, that is when they actually start to pick it up. Yes, so that's why I've asked these questions. Again, I'm going to just wait for 5 seconds, and then we can. Okay, let's go to the last two as well. The Howard Gardner's, the number 4 he looks at is, he asks this question of the respectful mind. Yeah. And he says that what is important is not just that there's a disciplined mind, there's a synthesizing mind, and then there is a creating mind, but it's very important that there's a respectful mind. Again, we are living in a very, very global world today, and our students, as they go into workplaces and things like that, very important that they actually have a respectful mind. This is very much to do with values and things like that, right? So you see, the skill is about responding sympathetically and constructively to differences among individuals and groups, and seeking to understand and work with those who are different. Again, you would see, like in a workplace, you will see some of us are very good at this. Some of us are able to, we are okay. We know that, okay, this person thinks something, that person thinks something else, and we are able to work with those differences. But some others, they're not able to do that, because they find it very annoying. They say, how can you think like this? That kind of thing. But like, we live in a world today where we need people who have a respectful mind, who are able to respond and engage sympathetically with different perspectives, right? Again, in a formal setting, this looks like working well with peers, teachers, staff, whatever their backgrounds and viewpoints, right? At work, it will look like working effectively with peers, with employees, subordinates, with supervisors, irrespective of the status. And I found this very interesting. It's also developing a capacity for forgiveness, because inevitably, in a workplace, you will find that we will step on each other's toes, right? Somebody will say something that will offend you. You will say something that will offend somebody. To be able to move on from that, developing the capacity of forgiveness. That's what a respectful mind is about. Yeah. Again, pseudo forms, like false forms of this, are those who are very, you would have noticed people like this who are very, very respectful to their boss, right? Or they'll be very, very responsive, respectful to the HOD or the chancellor and all these people, but they are extremely dismissive of those with less power. That is not a respectful mind, right? Or somebody who will always think of the group, but they'll not think of the individuals. So I think these are some ways in which we could have pseudo forms. Again, question for all of us is, how do we do in the aspect of a respectful mind? What are some ways in which you and I can improve? Yeah, and what are some ways we can nurture the respectful mind in our students? Yeah. Finally, the last slide I have is the ethical mind, right? I think ethical mind is about, and I think just one quick thing to say to you is, if you look at some of these things, right, the creating mind, um, this is one of the things that's leading technologists are saying that even the best of AI is not able to create like a human being, you know and even the best AI, it can, you can have robotics, you can have robotics actually taking care of robots who can take care of older people or sick people and things like that, but it is not the same as a person who's sitting next to you and understanding you, right? Or a person who just puts their hand on your shoulder, right? Like that's the importance of 5.0, right? Like not everything will be accomplished by technology. I think that understanding is key for some of these aspects. Right. So the final is about the ethical mind, striving towards good work and citizenship. Um, so formally, it looks like reflecting on one's role as a student and as a professional, right? Like reflecting on one's role. What is my role as a university professor? What am I supposed to be doing? What all am I? I think that's an ethical mind. You're starting to think, am I doing right in the way I'm using money, and in the way I'm using the funding, in the way I'm, treating my students, the way I'm assigning work, in the way I'm assessing. I think that's the ethical mind, and we need people who are constantly thinking like that, right? And at work, it looks like knowing and seeking to maintain core values, even when there are like a lot of ambiguity, a lot of change happening, but there are some core values, right? Willing to speak out even at personal cost, right? So there are some people who uh, will not speak up when there's something wrong happening, and that is not an ethical mind. But so sometimes there will be a personal cost, but you're still willing to speak up, and that's the kind of minds that we want to create for the future, right? Again, pseudo forms are as expounding without practicing. You'll see a lot of people who will say a lot about this is ethics, that is ethics, but you won't see them practicing it. That's a pseudo form. And you'll see also people who will practice ethics in a small arena but act irresponsibly in a larger sphere, right? Like, so they'll be within their department, within a particular project, they'll be like, no, this is it, this is the ethics, this is the only way to do it, and things like that. But largely, in other ways, they might be quite irresponsible, right? Again, question for all of us is, personally, how do we do in the aspect of the ethical mind? What are some ways in which we can improve, and what are some ways we can nurture the ethical mind in your students, right? So hopefully these, just to summarize, I've given you a sense of that sustainable development goals, the 17 goals that the world has set itself, we are all working towards. Um, we've talked about education 5.0. What does that do? uh, what is the sort of evolution of that? And we've looked at, like, if we were to really move into education 5.0, what are the kind of minds that we need to have, and what are the kinds that we want to, or kinds of minds we need to create in our classroom, right? So this could be, this is relevant to everybody, no matter what your discipline, no matter which year you're teaching, things like that, no matter what technology or what subject you're teaching. These are the kind of minds which, you need to nurture among your students, right? um, I've come to the end of my presentation, so I think we can spend some time also, taking questions, maybe reflecting. um, and I think it'll be great also if you have any experiences of your own which you'd like to share. Please do put it on the chat if you are able to share. This was the way in which I nurtured a creating mind in my students. This was the way in which I nurtured an ethical mind, a synthesizing mind, things like that. You can put that on the chat as well, right? So it can be a good learning for everybody. Um, so I'm going to stop there, and I think we can reflect together based on other questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. That was very enlightening. Participants, if you have any queries, you can post it in the YouTube chat box. So that will be answered by our guest. I don't think any questions are there. Yeah. There's one question asked by Adishri. How can correlate logical thinking in education 5.0?
Okay. Thank you, Adishri. So I think ma'am, will you be able to mute? I think. Oh. So thank you, Adishri, for that question. I think, see, again, um, see, these are all constructs, right? Like education 5.0 is a particular construct, a way in which we are starting to see this, right? So I think it is not a complete variation from what we had earlier. So I think logical thinking definitely, like as part of the uh, the disciplined mind, as any as you're teaching anything, any subject. I think that's the way the scientific temper, logical thinking, critical thinking are all part of the way in which we teach, even if it's technology or anything like that, right? I think that's one, um, it's very much a part of education 5.0 as well. In education 5.0, I think the thing that is additional is like how do we actually make sure that there is more human centered design happening, right? So or like how do we make sure, this is the way I understand it, like that, how do we make sure that this technology which we are talking about is actually relevant to the child or the students or the teachers or the society or the community that we're talking about, right? So I think that's the additional. So going beyond logical thinking almost is what education 5.0 is about. I think definitely starts with logical thinking.
The next question is in this digital era, students are well enough in technology, but they are lacking values. It could be a challenging task for the teacher society to impart holistic education. I don't know whether it is a comment or a question.
Yeah, I guess
It looks like.
I'm sure this is totally agree with you, Priyanka. I think it is definitely a challenge for all of us, right? I think but I think one of the things to realize is that I think the point that I really want to make is the aspect of role modeling, right? So if you see that so many of I started my work in education with middle school children, and one of the things I noticed very strongly is that students always role model teachers, and they always look and they learn, even when it looks like they're not learning from you, they are learning from you. So I think the whole aspect of role modeling is one key thing, I would say. Even the way in which we use technology, the way we understand technology, the way we uh, think about technology is itself something we need to role model a new way for our students. Palvinder Sandhu says today's education needs agility, and equity. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. How AI can help in conducting scientific research is asked by Sadhana. I think you all will have more experts in your midst who can talk about AI more within the computer science field itself. I just want to maybe share a few things though, like just from my own experience and our own work. I think there is a lot of conversation today about um, being thought about how do we actually use AI as an enabler for teachers. How do we use AI that in a way that will support teachers? And I think there are a lot of experiments being done, like or pilots being done in different parts of the world on how can we use AI to give feedback to teachers potentially, to have more personalized teacher development programs potentially, more personalized instruction for teachers. Uh, there is, I'm aware of one place where there was a WhatsApp chatbot that was tried out with government school teachers, where they would be given nudges on, they could share some data around their classroom or how they've experienced, and then there would be some nudges being given on, okay, it looks like your class has this particular problem, and these are some ways in which you can fix it, and a quick video you can watch on that, or a quick reading you can do on that, things like that, right? So there are some different ways in which it's being tried. I've also heard about AI being used as a very good tool for, ChatGPT and things, used as a very good tool for a first draft of writing. Um, I don't know what you all think as faculty on that. Will AI, Sudarshan Babar sir asking, will AI use to minimize respect for teachers? Right. So I think this is a very interesting question. Um, I think it really depends on us, right? I think like so much of how this will evolve is yet to be seen, right? So um, I think one of the things I really want to, I always encourage teachers, and I want to encourage all of you to see also, is to not see AI as potentially something that will replace you, but to actually start thinking of how will you use AI, in a way that will actually enhance your teaching, enhance your own learning, enhance the support you give to students. So I think one of the things that happens often is something like AI is very intimidating, right? So it's very like intimidating for us. Like, how do I even do? The whole world is changing, something completely new has come, and things like that. But to not get intimidated by AI, but to kind of see, okay, what are some small tools that I can learn? How can I, use it? I'm sure if you look around, you will find other teachers who have started to use some tools. So see if you can also pick that tool up. Think of what else can you do. Start talking to your students itself on how can we together use AI. So I think those are some things I'd say. I would say we need to not get intimidated. We can't really predict how AI will change the teaching role. But I think one of the key factors in that will be the teachers themselves, right? Like, how do we as teachers see our role? Do we see it as being replaced by AI, or do we see it as being, supplemented by AI? Again, some very interesting thing on that. If you actually take the task of education and you break it down into teaching and you break it down to learning, again you can break down teaching itself into 4 5 different things, learning into 4 5 different things, right? So there is the preparation, there is the setting the environment of a, learning space, there is the assessment, there is the teaching, it's facilitation, so many different aspects, right? So you need to actually think. I think we need to think of how does AI affect each of those areas. So instead of thinking that, oh, AI is going to replace teaching, it's not going to. What it can do is, and the way we need to think is, okay, of these different aspects, can AI help me in some, and some AI can't help because I can do it better than AI, right? I think that's something that's the way we need to think. That's what I would suggest. Yeah. Priyanka P again asking, five minds: disciplined, synthesizing, creating. The fourth is a respectful mind, and the fifth is a ethical mind. Thank you for asking.
There's another question by Suresh. What strategies are used in Education 5.0 to develop critical thinking and any problem solving skills?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So again, just want to offer some perspectives. I think this will very much depend also on your own, the subject you're teaching, your students, and things like that. But I would say, I think offering a lot of spaces where, like even creating an environment in the class where there is a lot of questioning, a lot of open dialogue, a lot of debate. I think that's one key part of ensuring that critical thinking skills are being developed. One of the things we speak about, like for school students, is this idea of um, stretching your students' understanding. So often what happens is, inevitably, like as a teacher you would ask a question in the class and somebody would answer and you'll be like, okay, yes, great. But sometimes what you will notice is that, so what ends up happening in that case is, you will have a class where, let's say, you have 40 students, two students are answering, they got the right answer, maybe others understand the right answer, or maybe they don't, right? And even the ones who know the right answer, maybe they don't know why that is the right answer, right? So all, and you're giving a message also to the class that ultimately all that matters is for you to know the right answer. But actually, like, if you're a teacher who encourages critical thinking, you will actually ask, even whether the answer is right or wrong, you will ask, how did you come up with this answer? And I think the process actually is more important than the final answer, right? I think to be able to nurture that kind of space in a classroom will start to develop a lot more critical thinking. I hope that makes sense to you. Just a small example. I think there are multiple ways in which you can think about, like, let's say, the assessments you give, the assignments you give, the classroom way you've structured it. How can you include more debate into the classroom? How can you include more collaborative work? And how can you give assignments that don't necessarily have one answer, is something that we can think through. Cultural competence amongst Palvinder Sandals is asking. Cultural competence among students, helping them develop a mindset that values and appreciates the perspectives and experiences of others. Will it help to develop respectful mind? Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of that is exactly what a respectful mind is all about in Professor Gardner's thinking. So I think a huge part of it is also cultural intelligence, right? To be able to appreciate other cultures. Like if you're in South India, to be able to appreciate North Indians. If you're Tamilian, to appreciate Malayalis or Kannadigas or things like that, right? To actually be able to empathize with the way they think, uh, and to, even if there is a point where you and I have a completely different opinion, to be able to respect each other's opinion. I think that's the respectful mind. And I think if we are, I think the reason this is so important is, as we grow, every leader has to cross boundaries, right? Like you have to cross cultural boundaries all the time. You have to cross boundaries of gender, you have to cross boundaries of age, you have to cross boundaries of organizations. And I think that's where we need to actually develop our students as with respectful mind.
So there is a question asked by Dr. R. Saravanan. Do we need to get smarter about AI in education?
Absolutely, yes. I think so. I think I mentioned this uh, just in a response to the previous call as well, previous question as well. I think one of my friends, like sometime back, we had this conference, and there was a talk given, and the topic was on taming the AI dragon. So the idea of sometimes we find it so intimidating, but like how do we actually not get intimidated by AI? Because like when we again, I want to really encourage you to go and check out some of the tools that are already available, and just see what you can do, what can you use. I think I'm sure, depending on your age, like whenever you were exposed to something new, it was intimidating at first, right? But I think over time we got used to it. We got used to Instagram, Facebook, internet, different things, right? So this is just one more thing, and I think um, we need to get smarter. Definitely, I think so. I would encourage you even to find small groups where you can actually all go and study different tools, come back, share with each other, things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for this question, Dr. Dhanalakshmi. How far will the sorry, yeah. How far will AI support the five mindsets uh, that we talked about, right? How far will AI support? Yeah, so this is a very interesting question. Thank you for asking this. Um, See, again, this is something about something that I want to um, encourage you all to do is to um, we need to think much more soberly about AI. You know, whenever there's a new technology, there is always a lot of alarm that happens, right? So there's always this feeling that maybe AI is so revolutionary that everything will change, right? And the truth is that not everything will change, but it's also not true that nothing, things will not change, right? So it's somewhere in the middle. So I think that's something to remember, that there are some ways in which maybe AI can help, but not all ways AI will help, and that's the whole point of education 5.0, right? Like, is to actually realize that in spite of the best, so much work that has been done, um, the way a human being can make innovation or think creatively or think outside of the box, uh, an AI tool or a technology cannot do that, right? And similarly, like the kind of human element, the human care that can happen, is a very human thing. Like AI is not at all close to that. And when it comes to ethics, that's a huge problem in AI, right? Like it, unless it is actually trained in that direction, if AI can actually be trained to learn ethics, right? But other than that, uh, it may actually, if that is not the case, it will be in a very bad place. So I think what I'd say is, we need to also in this uh, recognize some of the limitations of AI. That the best of AI can't actually create some of these things. That is what actually will, in the future, I think this is a very interesting question. I want to also answer this slightly differently, right? So one of the things you see in education 4.0, or like some uh, in earlier paradigms of education, is you're essentially creating students who are ready for the industry, right? You are like carefully seeing, okay, what is the need of the industry? How do I make sure I'm actually creating students who are ready for the industry? And today we're seeing a world where the industry is so automated, so much is changing, things like that, and it is so rapidly changing that if today you think this is the skill that is needed 5 years from now, that may not be the case. It's going to change, right? So the only way we can do this is to actually create students who are able to have some of these base mindsets, where they're disciplined, they're ethical, respectful, synthesizing. If they develop these capabilities, so then in spite of how industry changes, they will be able to handle it. I hope that makes sense, Dr. Dhanalakshmi. I think maybe we can take a couple of um, more questions. I'll just take a minute to put my
There was a previous question on what are the tools, AI tools to be used in the classroom teaching.
Yeah, 1 second. Okay. Uh, Thank you, Anupama Rajput. You asked, what are the important tools that can be used in classroom teaching? Uh, I think you will have to do more research. I'm not able to share a list immediately. I'm sure there will be a lot of things that will be available immediately. Uh, but I would definitely, I think like data is one key thing. There are like multiple ways in which you can potentially collect data of the class continuously. I think when you're using some of these learning management systems, that itself can help you. And I think that maybe there will be others you can find online. Yeah, and I think the use of AI tools within assignments is something that I would encourage you to explore.
Another question from Sudarshan. Will classroom education be a history in near future? I know it's taking time. I think we'll
Yeah,
stop with with this query probably.
sure. Yeah. So thank you so much, Sudarshan Sir. I think, like I said, no, I think it's something for actually us as the educational community to decide in the future. Actually, I think it's not it's we can't like say easily that classroom education will be history, because I think you so many people in technology in AI, they are very clear that it is not going to happen in the foreseeable future, that there will be no need of a teacher, right? So even in our NEPs, like teacher's role is very very important. The teacher's role will keep evolving, might need to evolve, um, but I think for it to be completely replaced is very 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 slim chance. However, I think this is something for us as a teaching community to also take up quite carefully, uh, and not get panicky in terms of will this not at all be happening, but rather to actually ask the question, okay, what is it specifically that I bring as a value, and what does technology bring as a value to me, and what do I bring that technology doesn't have. I think that's the way we need to approach this, not to get in any way panicked, but to approach it from a place of, um, what is my unique value addition to students, that a student will never learn from chat gpt what they can learn from me, right? So, and what am I bringing, to be very clear about that, and then to be very comfortable with the use of different technologies. That's what I would encourage. Thank you so much, everyone. um, Hopefully this has been a good use of your couple of hours. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the university as well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your patience in answering all the questions raised by our participants. Now, I would like to call Mr. Jayashankar, Assistant Professor, Department of IT, to deliver the formal vote of thanks.
Good morning, one and all present here. I feel honored and privileged to get the opportunity to propose a vote of thanks on this auspicious occasions. On behalf of IT department, I am grateful to the esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and efforts in making this event a success. We truly appreciate your active involvement and enthusiasm throughout this session. At the outset, I would like to express our gratitude to our respected and distinguished speaker, Mr. Dexter Sam, Associate Ed Program, State Education, who shared the intuitions, proficiency, and experiences with us. His valuable contributions were insightful and inspiring. I thank our President, Engineer ACS Arun Kumar, for his motivation, encouragement, and continuous support for executing such events. I also thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. S. Geeta Lakshmi, Professor Dr. K. M. Mehta, Advisor, Computing Science, Registrar Dr. C. B. Palanivel, Additional Registrar Dr. V. Cyril Raj, and Dean Engineering and Technology Dr. N. Etiraj for their valuable guidance and encouragement in all our efforts. My heartfelt thanks to my head and additional Dean Engineering Technology, Dr. N. Kanya ma'am. Once again, thank you all for your participation and support. We hope that you found the webinar informative and that they proved you with valuable insights and perspectives. We look forward to your continuous participation in our future events. A special thanks to organizing committee, teaching and non-teaching staff for their unflinching support and coordination. Last but not least, I would like to thank Almighty. With these warm words and a kind message, we move to end today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you all for your fullest cooperation and the overwhelming response to make the event grand success. Participants, the attendance link will be available in the YouTube chat box. Kindly fill it to earn your e-certificate. And this is time.
நமதென்று சொல்லுவோம் நல்ல பாதையில் செல்லுவோம் கல்வியே கண்கள் என்றுமே புது தலைமுறை நம் பெயர் சொல்லுமே
Dr. NGR Educational and Research Institute, University, Madurai, Chennai.
Dr. NGR Educational and Research Institute, University welcomes you. Faculty of Engineering and Technology, Mechanical Engineering, Electronic and Communication Engineering, Electrical and Electronic Engineering, Computer Science and Engineering, Electronic and Communication Engineering, Biotechnology,
Rajajeshwari Medical College and Hospital is a dynamic, reputed, highly acclaimed institution situated in the serene 25-acre campus in southwest Bangalore. The college has state-of-the-art central research laboratory with qualified and trained personnel. The fully modular operation theatres in the hospital are equipped with the most advanced systems and devices. Highly experienced, top-notch surgeons undertake complex surgeries in a spectrum of specialties, thus helping the patients to get the best clinical care.
ACS Medical College and Hospital, Chennai,
This spacious, well-ventilated and audio-visual equipped lecture halls and classrooms are designed to provide space for CMEs and training sessions for the doctors, students, staffs and nurses and technicians.
Faculty of Medicine, Sri Lalitambigai Medical College and Hospital,
The hospital has a wide range of round-the-clock laboratory infrastructure with skilled staff providing prompt service to the patients. The ICUs constitute the pride of the hospital healthcare delivery. The well-stocked pharmacy in the hospital works around the clock.
Faculty of Dental Surgery, Thai Mogambigai Dental College and Hospital. Faculty of Architecture, Faculty of Arts and Commerce, Faculty of Humanities and Sciences, Faculty of Law, Faculty of Physiotherapy.
Skilled staffed physiotherapy department helps in the rehabilitation process.
Faculty of Pharmacy,
The well-stocked pharmacy in the hospital works around the clock.
Faculty of Nursing, Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, Computer Applications, Faculty of Hotel Management, De Novo courses. Faculty of Education, General Facilities,
Library is a treasure trove of knowledge. Fully equipped ambulance services, multi-cuisine nutritional cafeteria for students and the staff, gym facilities, separate sessions for men and women, comes with all exercise equipment. A spectacular cricket ground and separate swimming pools for boys and girls.
few of our events in lineup. Degrees are awarded to the graduates on the convocation day. Dr. MGR University, providing education with moral and social values to bring out the youth with character and humility beyond compare. Following the footsteps of a phenomenon, Bharat Ratna Dr. M.G. Ramachandran, former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, for meaningful progress and better tomorrow.